verso la meta,
lo sguardo d'asceta,
mostra il tuo gregge,
la fuggi da legge,
santa e divina,
che apre la china,
Aspettate, maledetti! Se Pepio ve lo taglio, a fettine ve lo taglio!
ci esorti,
Se Pepio mannaggia!
contro il maligno,
suo innalzato della virtù. Padre, padre, padre superiore, la penitenza è il pane del tuo cuore.
I say tomato,
And I say Massaccesi.
and I say potato.
What?
Let's call the whole thing off.
Hello, and welcome to, actually, I'm not quite sure what we're calling this. I guess it's I Say Tomato.
Yes.
Yeah, the many moods of Arsitide Massaccesi. Yeah, so it's me, Clive Davis, and over there we have down the bottom.
I don't know where I am related to what you're seeing on the screen, but I'm going to say that I'm Nick.
And over there is, of course, our trusted voyager on this journey is.
Yeah, Gavin Whittaker, Captain.
Yeah. So here we are. Me, Nick, and Gav, who you may have seen talking nonsense before, but now we have a fantastic new vehicle for our gibberish. And the plan here is to cover the entirety of the Arsitide Massaccesi filmography. Arsitide Massaccesi being AKA Joe D'Amato and a whole bunch of other pseudonyms, which we'll get to, I guess. And a very prolific and well, very dead now. Kind of, I suppose you'd call him it would not be doing him a disservice to call him a sleazemeister, I think, overall.
No, that seems fair.
I think his family would be pleased with that.
I think that's why that was what was on his tombstone, I believe.
No, I think it was just coated in slime and cum.
Okay.
Yeah, if you go and visit it.
You'll probably find Rocco Siffredi there beating off.
So
It'd have to be a big tombstone to have all these AKA names on them.
That's true, actually, yes. Double-sided.
maybe a crypt with them all inscribed on the inside. Yeah, so for those who don't know, Arsitide Massaccesi, was an Italian filmmaker who, I suppose, safe to say, as he progressed, specialized in horror and erotica, I guess, is what he's mostly known, and the kind of weird crossover between the two. Sometimes, I think. I suppose, yeah, the kind of ultimate in this is yes, he did make a film called Porno Holocaust. I think that's probably not necessarily his best film, but the pinnacle of the D'Amato aesthetic, maybe.
Yeah.
Yes. So
I mean, I do think it's, before we even get into this, it is worth saying that Joe D'Amato's films always look amazing if you can see them in a proper restored, as they were meant to be seen, right? Because he was a masterful cinematographer, and that's what kind of is the beginning of his career, yes. Right? I mean, he goes from a still photographer on sets to cinematographer to eventually being able to direct.
I don't know, was he a still photographer? I know he was a cameraman and then he went to cinematography, and then
I was just looking at his IMDb, like his not his IMDb, sorry, his Wikipedia entry, and the first bunch of films on there, he's listed as still photographer.
Oh, okay. Yes, born Rome, 1936, dead when 99, I think, something, not that old. And yes, very prolific. And what we'll be concentrating on is his directorial output, was about 200 titles. A bit difficult to tell sometimes because both of you are shaking. Are we really doing this? Yes. And the way we've decided to div up the labour is so usefully there's quite a handy, more or less a 50-50 split between his hardcore and his non-hardcore films, right? So we've taken the 100, I say 100 non-hardcore, but then some of them do kind of stray over into that territory, but they weren't made for that market, right? I think he full on started making proper, just utilitarian, one-handed viewing porn in the early 90s, right? So we're going to separate those 100 and we're going to split up the other 100 across 12 shows across the year. That's the idea. Anyway, hopefully we can get it done in time. So a show a month, about 8 films a month. And then as a special bonus, maybe at the end of December, if this all goes to plan, we'll have an extra show number Lucky 13, where we just do an overview of anything that struck us about his porno output, which we shall be watching at our own speed throughout the year. That's the idea here, isn't it, gents? That's how it's hoping to play out.
Well, that's the plan that you've made anyway. So we'll see. We'll see.
Of mice and men. But I think it's a pretty good plan. It's an interesting little project. I think we'll be better people at the end of it. Potentially.
I will tell you this. I will say this. This first episode, for me, you know, we did Clive and I did something similar to this last summer, where we watched all 60 something of Umberto Lenzi's films, and definitely this first clutch of 8 is quite superior to the kind of a high rollicking sea adventure and kind of like low rent Robin Hood stuff that was going on. Already I could definitely see there was more fun to be had in this brace of films than there was in that first brace of Lenzi films, for sure.
Well, we're starting later. We're starting at the beginning of the 70s, right? So we're skipping a few Italian cycles, right? So we've, as much as I love the peplums, there's no peplums here. There's no spy films. So yeah, so we're just starting it from a very different. If we'd have done the D'Amato like cinematographer project, then we probably would. Yeah, but we're not. Well, we're mildly insane. We're not quite that mad. So before we kick off proceedings, just for a little bit of starting with young Gav here, when was the first time do you think you would have seen a Joe D'Amato film?
Probably something sort of things that were about on video in sort of the late 80s. So maybe like Endgame and. Maybe probably the Video Nasties eventually. Those took a bit more finding, you know, the absurd. Yeah.
Yes. Same here, I think, probably. Yeah, maybe yeah, some obviously the stuff that were anthropophagus and absurd were the most visible to UK horror. Well, not literally, because they were still Video Nasties, but you know, we'd heard of them. And maybe I seem to remember Redemption put out a few things in the mid-90s, right? Maybe I'm sure there were a few D'Amato things ended up on either Redemption or Salvation, right? Like 11 Days, 11 Nights, maybe, or stuff like that.
Redemption was a weird label. They always had that very kind of like gothic lesbian overtones to their whole like packaging and stuff like that. That didn't always necessarily connect to whatever the film that was in the box. I always found they really pushed their aesthetic.
I loved Redemption. Redemption films were one of the first kind of labels that started ticking boxes for me, just in terms of being like a collector of things. Like I really liked that uniform look they had, and it's difficult to remember now in the days of high def and versions and stuff, but they tried their best to get you the finest print and the longest that they'd be
Mhm.
allowed to show in the UK, right? So, and yeah, it was that weird mixture of, yeah, you would have something like Vampires Lesbos or something, but also Carl Theodore Dreiser's Vampire, or, you know,
Mhm.
I remember getting like an apologetic letter from them once. Like they sent back a check I'd sent them for some videos. And they sent a check back because the films that I'd ordered had been banned by the BBFC, so they couldn't have them. I think that was Bear Behind Bars and the
right.
Just Franco film when he played a priest.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Bear Behind Bars being rejected. Oh, they tried to put that one out as well, did they? That Franco one, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Exorcism.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they were kind of just on the edge of yeah, they were putting out it's funny now to think, because you know, there's like Blu-ray sets devoted to these films now, but and how did you think, when did you first see
Joe D'Amato?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, did Redemption not put out a bunch of like what's his face? J.A. Laser, you know, what's his actual name? French lesbian vampire guy.
I only know him as J.A. Laser. I
don't you just know him as J.A. Laser. Anyway, am I not wrong in thinking they put out
Jean Roland?
Yes, they put out a bunch of Jean Roland films.
Yes,
right?
they did. Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to say the very strong likelihood is it was either Ator or Ator 2. I would say, because I went through a phase as like an early teenager of like watching every single shitty, like, you know, whatever those you would call those late era peplum swords and sorcery things. Like, I believe
the correct term is Conan ripoff, I think.
Yeah, those are the ones. Yes. Yeah, I watched every Conan ripoff. You know, it didn't matter who the fuck was it. It was the Barbarian Brothers or David Carradine. You know, yeah. I'm sure I watched those, and then I probably would have seen Endgame as well, because I also went through a phase in my teenage years of watching all of the Mad Max ripoffs. So it would have been a while. It would have been a while before I got to, like, I would have been in my early 20s, probably, when I was at art school, that I would have seen things like Anthropophagus. So I primarily knew him more as like, yeah, a fantasy dude.
Right. Okay. So yes. Okay. Yeah. So so 80s pretty much for all of us, right? So yeah. And he did keep on going, yeah, right through to when he snuffed it. So with what's this? 3 decades of films, pretty much. And so we should say that in this first batch of 8, there might even be a couple he didn't direct, right?
Well, there's a lot of dual credits on IMDb for these things. Like, they have like a director and then him also as maybe the real director, or...
I think this is the only time we're probably going to... I think beyond this clutch of it, I think it's pretty much more plain. Apart from when we get to some of the hardcore stuff in the 90s, because there's a lot of stuff which is credited to Luca Damiano that might also have it. But yeah, like we said, we're just doing a kind of overview of... I don't think we don't have to comment on every thrust and ejaculation, because we'll be here all day, right? Yes, so shall we begin then, lads?
Where does this I can't remember now the order. I just watch them out of order. So Clive, I'm trusting you to know what the release order of these films.
That's right. It's always a good idea to trust me. Right. So off we go. 1972. Or filthy Canterbury Tales, or more sexy Canterbury Tales, or The Last Decameron, right?
Okay.
And, so I went and had a little look about at... I'm pretty sure D'Amato did direct this. But like a few of his early titles, he seemed to have decided to hide behind someone else, right? Because he was afraid that once other directors found out that he was directing his own stuff, that they wouldn't hire him as a cinematographer.
Oh, okay.
Apparently. So this is officially credited to Romano Gastaldi, which is interesting. A few of these early ones he's hidden under someone else's pseudonym, which is interesting to me because that assumes that the idea would have been that other people would have already known who that pseudonym indicated for him to, because if you just put up a pseudonym, but it was deliberately to divert away from him, right? So Romano Gastaldi would have been Romano Scandariato, who'll come up a lot in this first episode because he was involved in a few of these. And yeah, so for context, we should probably explain that Pier Paolo Pasolini made a trilogy of these films in the early 70s, right? He did the Canterbury Tales, he did Boccaccio's Decameron, and then a little bit later on he did the Arabian Nights as well. And this is kind of his trilogy of
the Life trilogy.
Yes,
I think it's called. You know, it's the Ribald, and then he came back and did Salo and the death side of things.
Yeah, but I don't like that Life trilogy. That's awfully.
It's a terrible.
Yeah. But I suppose what connects them is they're all
Ribald and scatological.
Well, also they're foundational collections of kind of indigenous stories, I guess, about folk. And yes, to your point, there's some tits and turds in there.
Yeah,
I guess.
Classy tits and turds. Yes. And so this is so obviously there's like in Italian cinema there always is, there's like a spin-off, right? Like something successful and then you get a spate of, this is a weird one though to me, this mini genre of
the most surprising, because you get, oh, I see why Fistful of Dollars, for example, would have been a massive hit, and there's all this, but yeah, for a start, Pasolini seems it's artier than usual for these things that triggered these crazes, right? These commercial crazes. But it's kind of, and plus they kind of trigger the three of them in a set. Especially the first two, right? Because Arabian Nights came a little bit later. But have you seen the three Pasolini films, both of you?
I have seen Canterbury Tales a number of times, and I've seen the Decameron one, but I've actually never seen 1001.
How about you? Haven't seen any of them, Gav?
No. Doesn't Robin Asquith in one of them?
Yeah, Canterbury Tales.
Yes, which
that's the one to see. To me, that's my favorite of the two I've seen.
I don't remember much about Decameron, but Arabian Nights I've seen in more recent years, and it's kind of how could I say, it's a film you have to give yourself over to. Like it's a visually sumptuous film. I think it was shot in places like Syria, and it's like shot across the Middle East. Very nice, but it's very much like it's a film you should put on the big screen and have like a picnic before you have olives and some wine, and then just kind of let it drift over you. It's that very strong atmosphere, but it's not necessarily it's not going to hold your attention if you sit and focus on it. So it's just nice to have it on. It's actually quite good for what it is, I think. Yeah, so oddly enough, the three of them triggered more than you might think, right? There's more of these, what became known as the decamerotic
subgenre.
There's more than you might think, right? There's like, I keep coming across new ones, and I'm like, oh, another one of these. It's like, yeah, it is an odd little it is one of the weirder little niches of Italian exploitation cinema.
Did many of these films get a release outside of Italy? I know this one has a sort of English dub version, but the other ones don't seem to be out there. So.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of them didn't.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why, because you'd think nudity would export pretty much anywhere, regardless of context, right? But yeah, a lot of them you can't. Well, as we'll get to, you have to watch in Italian language, right?
One of the weird things about these films too is that they were a huge influence on the Monty Python troupe. That they basically said when they went to make their first like feature films, like Quest for the Holy Grail, Life of Brian, they were very much thinking of Pasolini. They were like, we want to do, and you know, when you watch, and even these D'Amato ripoffs, there is a kind of a grit and a realism, and it almost looks like somebody went back in time and took a camera.
Yeah.
And just like there's something weird about them that's different. They don't have the gloss of a lot of historical film. They seem like real.
Yeah, this is something I like, because we'll get to this when we get to it, but something I like of, even though it's the tail end of the craze and most of them are shit, this is something I quite like about the spaghetti westerns of the early 70s, as well as, like you said, they have that a bit like Goodbye Uncle Tom, right? It feels as if a camera crew has gone back in time.
Right.
That weird mix of, it's a period thing, but the camera's like free roaming and stuff like that. But somehow it lends it more authenticity, I think, rather than
I think it might be neo-real. It might be like neo-realist stuff that you put to the surface of this, right?
So it's interesting how Pasolini, in a way, like, you know, the artiest of art house directors, in a way, right? This towering kind of intellectual really informed a lot of this. Yeah.
Well, his film, I mean, you know, like some of the most famous scenes in Canterbury Tales are things like Robin Asquith pissing all over people off of a great height, and so, you know, there's like, so yeah, you can see that the DNA is there because Pasolini himself was attracted to.
Oh yeah. He didn't get to do that in, you know, any of the. There's no Confessions of a Toilet Inspector or something like that. Or...
Yes. oh, there we go. There's
Mr. Trick Confessions.
There we go.
We need to get him out of retirement. Yeah, he'd be well up. How old is he now? And you say, "Come on, Robin, you get to ogle and fondle some young dolly birds in your 70s or whatever." He'd be well up for that, I reckon.
He'd be there for sure. So this is the one that has the amazing soundtrack, right? Or at least amazing theme tune, right? This is the one, the Padre.
Yes. This is a great theme tune, this one. Yes.
And it opens with this bizarre scene of all of these monks like running away from the Father Superior, who's like chasing them, huffing down a hill for some reason.
Yeah, I'll be editing in the Padre theme tune at some point, because it's it is catchy as fuck. The only thing that stops me from singing the whole thing is because then it goes into Italian and I don't actually know what they're saying. But the Padre bit is great stuff. So it's basically a collection of, very much in the tradition of, bawdy tales, right? All more or less either around the clergy or a rural community, you know, a deeply religious community, right? So we have like you said, you've got these naughty monks and excited nuns, I would put it, who seem to get together, you know, in the boys' school meets the girls' school kind of way. You got a sculptor and his nude model, and a lot of husbands being
huge amount of people getting the horns put on them across all of these films,
and people, you know, priests getting all excited in confessionals by peasant women, and erotic cow milking.
For some unholy reason that kind of worked for me.
This whole bit about this guy who wants to shag a woman across the road, so he goes in drag as a maid in waiting at her house. What I liked about this section is this is the section which includes the Batman TV show like spinning of the sex scenes, if you remember. There's like kept expecting it to Commissioner Gordon on his phone or
The
something.
red phone.
Yeah. So yeah, like we said, we're not necessarily going to go super deep on all of these. So that's probably enough for in terms of just a plot synopsis. It's a portmanteau or an anthology of vaguely amusing, vaguely erotic kind of rustic soft porn, I guess. How did we get on with this one?
You take it, Gavin, and then I'll
because this is very much in your wheelhouse. I thought Gav, you love, as you pointed out before, pale-faced people pawing each other, except this is it's the Italian countryside rather than the English countryside.
It's sort of interesting. You know, for years people were saying that, you know, in the 70s only British people were making like silly sex comedies, and yet anywhere the rest of the world was making like serious, you know, Last Tango in Paris sort of Emmanuel sort of
Right.
movie. Yeah, you see this and you realise, you know, this is that very much an Italian sort of variation on that.
Yeah, it is. It's very door slamming kind of stuff, isn't it? Very and pretty innocuous as well. I can't imagine much of anyone finding anything offensive, because even like the religious angle, it plays, you know, it's less it's more Father Ted than anything else, right? Like you can imagine people just I can't imagine this offending many people in that way. It's and then they're immediately disarmed by the awesome theme tune. So it's kind of all right, actually. If this is Joe D'Amato's debut, then well done. I mean, he's in it, right? He's in it for like a few seconds, and of course he shot it as well. Right. So there was, I had a look, we had two versions, right? We had a terrible quality version with English audio, and then we had an Italian version, and I don't know what you do. I kind of watched them side by side and tried to get them to sync up, which they did more or less. In terms of differences, oddly enough, some of the sexier bits seem to run longer in the shorter English audio version. They seem to be snipped from the Italian. I don't know if the Italian was from TV or something. But then all of a sudden there was a couple of scenes so that there's a scene at the end where the exhausted monks return, right? That's not on the English version, it's on the Italian version, but they pretty much played the same, or am I missing something? Anyone notice anything major difference between the two?
No, not really, no. Although I'm realizing I just assumed that one version. I didn't watch the English dub. I just watched the Italian one because I think I didn't realize it was in English. I just thought, oh, we got an upgrade, we got a better print. So that's hilarious. So I just tried to parse it as best I could. I mean, it was pretty easy to follow. I don't feel like I missed a lot of the nuance. So I did have a question then. Who's the fella who seems to be like shitting while talking to his like underlings or whatever? Is he constipated or is he shitting too much? That was my major question.
Constipated.
He was constipated. Okay, I thought it was because he was groaning and grunting a lot.
Yeah. Always, always trust Nick to bring the important questions. That's why I always have a seat at the UN.
And then I have to say there was the guy who was the master of the house in the segment that involved the young fella dressed as a lady trying to get in. He looked like who's the guy who plays Baldric in
Tony Robinson.
Yeah, he looked like Tony Robinson and Andy Serkis, Gollum, specifically as Gollum, and maybe Joe Pesci had a gangbang and that was the result. It was a phenomenally
good-looking fella, then.
Phenomenally ugly little man, but yeah, anyway. Yeah, I mean, it was fun. I now that I know that I can watch it in English, I may actually go back and watch the do what you did, sync up the two prints and actually hear the dialogue in English. But
Yeah, no, it's not bad. It was a little bit more fun than I thought, and I'm pretty sure because I'll share this with you fellas later, but I just watched the beginning of that Joe D'Amato Totally Uncut doc, and they do specifically talk about this film, and he did direct this film. And the IMDb has him, but then if you start looking around, it doesn't. Yeah, so it's very confusing these first few early years, and I think at least maybe one of these he didn't direct, but he was certainly about for all of them, right? Also, as you mentioned, the cast of this as well. Joe D'Amato's future running partner Luca Damiano is in it.
oh,
Yeah, I'm not sure which one he is, but he is in there. He might be. There's like towards the end. There's when they're returning. There's like a couple of exhausted monks like at the back, right? And one of them's Joe D'Amato. The other one might be Luca Damiano.
okay.
I think. Okay, are we done with more? I like More Filthy Canterbury Tales is my favorite title. Okay, so we're talking some macaroni western. Next with here we go, another few titles for you to choose from. Trinity in Eldorado, or Stay Away from Trinity when he comes to Eldorado, or Poker Face. So as we know from all the other shows that we do, where Nick insists on shoehorning Thomas Milian into everything, obviously he loves spaghetti westerns.
Yes.
Where are you a spaghetti western or western in general aficionado, Gav, or is there not enough nudity?
No, not really.
I'm assuming you've probably seen some of the big ones, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the problem with it is that he's made so many films, so many genres. You're bound to like come up against like the odd brick wall, films you're not really into.
Right.
War films, horror, zombie films.
Right.
The person alive who can like everything, that he ever did.
Right. Yeah. So would this have been your brick wall then a little bit? Are you not hugely?
Well, no, I like this one the best of probably all the three westerns.
Right.
Which is odd because I think when I do go in for western, I tend to go in for more violent sort of Django type one. But yeah, I seem to get on with this one the best. That's really it's more of a comedy western. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, one of three westerns are going to be talking here, and also one of a couple of kind of cut and paste westerns as well, right? Less so than the other one we're going to be talking about. So this one uses footage from a film from the previous year. I don't know if either of you got a chance to watch it.
No.
Lobo the Bastard was the title I saw it under, but it's also Django Always Draws Second, or his name was Pot, but they called him
Kettle.
Jerry. Yes. They called him Black, but then the other guy said, "Hey."
I'm assuming the Django title was the German one, because
Probably.
For some reason the Germans titled anything that came out of Italy as a Django.
Yes,
to someone.
Yes. I think even the Columbo films are renamed.
Django
loves your books. Django's wife loves your books, or something.
Yeah, this one is definitely much more of a lighthearted comedy affair. I think you're right, Gav. It's not your kind of your gritty Sergio, Corbucci ear cutting off. This is much more breezy and silly, and I did like the fact that they couldn't even be bothered to check the spelling on elixir, so he has that massive sign on the side of his thing with elixir on it.
Well, you know, the standards of the day, literacy standards in the Wild West. It's
I
quite
suppose.
yeah. So one thing I should definitely say, so the original source film, Lobo the Bastard, is one of those most unholy of things, a Miles Dean Western.
Fuck.
Demofilo Fidani.
And
Actually,
I like spaghetti westerns, but those are like, ooh,
yeah,
those are hard going.
I've seen a couple, but this one was just, man, I don't know how Miles Dean does it, but he seems to have this magic ability to suck any joy or anything out of a film somehow. Like, it was so boring.
Don't they feel like they're 9 hours long? Like
Yeah.
it somehow attenuates them. You realize you've been watching for 20 minutes. You're like, I must have been watching this for an hour and a half.
Yeah,
No, 20 minutes have gone by.
It's incredible. I don't know. It's like the anti-Midas touch, and the thing is, there's nothing. Everything that normally happens in westerns is in them. There's fist fights, there's shootouts, there's bank robberies or vengeance. All these things are in there. But then there's a special Miles Dean touch where he's just like, this is a little interesting. We don't like this. I'll shoot it in a way that is the most boring film you've ever seen in your life. That's my Miles Dean impression. It's highly accurate, by the way. I researched him. But it's just amazing. I don't know how he does it. It's just awful.
It's like sitting down to dinner and just someone gives you like 6 loaves of white bread with no butter, no marge, just there you go.
And then says, eat that or watch a Miles Dean Western. So the amazing,
this film is a cut and paste job made from a Miles Dean film.
Yeah, so the amazing thing about Trinity and Eldorado, and again, I'm already impressed by our good friend Aristide here, the plot is basically, it's Stelvio Rossi, or Stan Cooper, who is in the 1975 Scaramouche. He's
very David Warner-y looking. Like he doesn't look like a guy in a Western. He looks like he's wandered in from like a Brit sex comedy or whatever, with his little shaggy mop of blonde hair.
So he's like
he's come from the he's arrived in the Old West via the King's Road. So.
Yeah, exactly. With this big like floofy shirt and the rest of it.
Yeah. That's true. So he's kind of a snake oil salesman, right? And he's in league. His saddle mate is Gordon Mitchell. And I tell you, this period, I'm thinking 99% of gargoyles may look like Bob Todd, but the other percent won't look like Gordon Mitchell.
Wow, he does have a face on him. I was quite taken with that.
Yeah, it's specifically this period, because when you see him in his peplums and stuff, he looks a bit, but he looks like fucking grot bags or something. I don't know if he was ill or some diet regime or something. Yeah, anyway, so I can't even remember what was so they're basically robbers, right? And they get it into their heads. They find out about this madman.
Oh, yes.
Played by Craig Hill.
Yeah.
Who rides around on a horse with like a motorcycle pillion on it, right?
Yep.
Spitting on the peasants who
on their heads. They have to bow down and he gobs on their heads. Yeah. It's fucked. And he's also wearing a kind of like a 1960s or 70s like tin pot dictator uniform with all the flash and badges and stuff.
And somehow he's become, he's got some hidden gold, and he's got a daughter who hates him, right, as played by Danielle Giordano, who does some vaguely sexy being seen in her lingerie stuff, right? So she helps. The idea is it helps them out to rob her father, and that kind of goes on from there. So we should say, right, so the caveat for this is rubbish, right? This is absolutely a terrible Western. Think about it. It is a bad Western, but it's so cynical in its use of stealing footage from somewhere else and just time wasting, horse riding,
Magic tricks. So much like
yeah, endless. I actually kind of grudgingly quite enjoyed this film, but yeah. By the time it gets to the end and there's like this stupid trap where an explosion goes off and it's almost like something from a cartoon, right, where someone's left black smoking.
Yeah.
There's something about this film's audaciousness. I quite liked Trinity. I know it's shit, but I kind of liked it. What did you make of this one?
You can go first, Gav.
Well, yeah, I think I mostly know Stan Cooper from there's like a Spanish horror film called The Hanging Woman. You remember that?
Paul Naschy film, right?
Yeah. I've always sort of like extremely like flamboyant sort of womanizer persona in that. And I've always wondered if that was just specific to that film or whether he's like that in everything else. Judging by this, he was like that in everything else.
Yeah. He's like you said, he's a Carnaby Street cowboy, isn't he?
But yeah, I think it sort of benefits having two actors who have a bit of charisma to them, opposed to the guy in the other two spaghetti western.
Yeah, Clint Potato Face, or whatever the fuck he is in the other two. Yeah. And you're right, and both Gordon and him, they both have some screen presence and some.
Yeah, and also we should mention Stan Cooper does, of course, have an extra cheeky bit of fourth wall breaking at the very end, right, where he just goes, "Oh, the picture's ended." And
yeah, I was like Ferris Bueller or something like that. It was like, what the hell?
Well, it's also a bit of a final. Yeah, fuck you. We just waited 90 minutes of your time.
On this malarkey.
But I like. Did you enjoy it though, Gav, or did you hate every second of it?
I enjoyed it the most of the westerns. Let's put it like that. Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Nick? As an aficionado of the genre, where does this is this now your new favorite above Once Upon a Time in the West?
No,
it's not. Sergio Leone.
No.
Got Dick Spitfires in town.
That's an amazing name.
It is.
I've forgotten about Dick Spitfire as a.
Yeah.
That's Joe D'Amato's. Given especially his later career.
Well, it's almost like I would imagine the alternative was if you'd call yourself Kurt Luftwaffe or something like that. Like that would also be pretty good.
I get it, but Dick Spitfire is particularly filthy sounding as well as the
And yeah, so again, we should mention. Sorry to interrupt you. You were just about to say. So now that you brought it up, though, we should say that. So this is him hiding behind someone else's. So this would have normally been Diego Spataro's pseudonym, right? Yeah. Dick Spitfire, but it's actually Arsitide. And once again, we've got Romano Scandariato on screenwriting duties with Spataro and Alberto Pefe. And also our good friend Miles Dean was involved in this one as well as a producer, because him, D'Emilio Fidani and Spataro made Django and Sartana. Choose your pick for the second part of the. It's Django and Sartana. It's always something they did.
Right. Yes.
The previous year, right, which is one I haven't seen, but with Dick Spitfire and Miles Dean, it's got to be a winner. So, did you enjoy Trinity and Eldorado, Nick?
I did, yeah. I mean, I of the three, it was definitely my favorite of the westerns, just because it was the most over the top, right? It was the most silly. I did enjoy Eldorado's ridiculous, and that actor is American, which was also interesting to me. The actor who plays Eldorado in that,
Craig Hill,
yeah. And then I don't know. There was just I really liked the soundtrack. It didn't sound like a spaghetti western soundtrack. It was more like a 72, like Milan Caliber 9 with all the fucking flute and the crazy psychedelic stuff.
It was.
And I was like, I am a big
like a sort of biker movie soundtrack, sort of LSD free out in a biker movie. But
yeah, and that added a lot of added. That was a lot of added value for me.
Well, his horse has handlebars.
It does.
So, in so many ways, though, it's barely a western. Like it has the trappings of a western, but it feels like anything other than a western for a lot of its running time.
Do you remember the two girls too? The two like Haight Ashbury hippie, Indian, like in that using cowboys and Indians, like garbed girls flanking with their little belly button showing. That seemed very Joe D'Amato to me. You can see the kind of the Joe-ness in certain parts of the film. And then there's always the hilarious, overweight woman wants to have sex, with a gargoyle, but still it's hilarious that he would want to. I did like when he first showed up and he shouted, "Pussy, where are you?" Because it really brought me back to my teenage years. It was a lament that I often also cried out.
And also, you shouted out, which is why you weren't getting any.
It might be why. It was frightening the ladies away.
You'd arrive back from school, "Pussy, where are you?" And no one would answer. Well, my big takeaway from this though is the film starts, right? And so the score, which we mentioned, which is, all over the place and kind of quite fascinating. Giancarlo Ciaramello, who I wasn't familiar with. But
no, me neither.
The opening theme, it's and I'm thinking, this is Public Enemy. This is harder than you think, right? I think, it's too close. Like, I could get the coincidence thing, but I was thinking, this sounds exactly like Public Enemy. And I'm thinking, what are the chances that, Chuck D stumbled across Trinity and Eldorado late at night? But then I was thinking, well, no, hang on. That song's clearly made from a sample, right? So I looked it up. Right. And Public Enemy are sampling a Shirley Bassey tune, actually, called Jezebel.
Okay.
Which is a cover of a song by an Italian group called Delirium.
Okay.
From 1971. And I looked it up. I looked up Delirium's Jezebel. And yeah, I would definitely say that Giancarlo Ciaramello was basically ripping off Delirium. And
no, he's not a member of He's not a member of Delirium.
No, I looked that up. I thought he might have been a member of them and did this on the side, but no, I think it just must have been around. But the Shirley Bassey song's a fucking belter, man. And of course, the Public Enemy song is I'm a big fan of that as well. But yeah, I didn't expect the connections to Public Enemy watching
right.
Trinity and Eldorado. So that was nice. I got a couple of new things to put on my playlist. I could not find the soundtrack to Trinity and Eldorado anyway, though. That would be a good soundtrack with all that rock.
Oh, I would. I'll search the place that I do search for that stuff and see if I can dig it up.
I don't know if there ever would have been a soundtrack issued for this, though. I mean,
too bad, because it's a great soundtrack. Also, if you want to see Gordon Mitchell drowned in a mud puddle for 12 minutes, this is definitely a film for you, because there's a drag down knockout fight that just goes on and on. Yes. They cut away from it, they cut back to it. They're still fucking fighting in that mud puddle.
Here's a clue. It goes on and on and on. Where do you think it might come from? The Miles
of course. Yes. Of course it's not. Yes.
Yes, I should mention that Gordon Mitchell is in
okay.
Lobo the Bastard, which is the way they connect. To be fair, they actually did quite a good job. I think if I hadn't watched Lobo the Bastard just before this and I don't think I would have noticed. Did either of you actually kind of feel, oh, this is stock footage from anywhere else? Or did it? For me, I thought it worked quite well as a piece. Right?
I wouldn't have guessed. The only thing was I did notice that the tension or the pacing would severely lag in places, but I didn't recognize that that's because
that's the magic Miles theme touch in action.
Because one of my notes just say we're 6 minutes from the end of this film and it's really still dawdling at its own pace. There's fucking no tension whatsoever.
Yes.
So that makes sense now.
Coming next year, the Miles Deem podcast. No, we're never doing
Christ, no. We could do it on Quaaludes as well, so it will be extra.
That's a job for someone like, I don't know, like on death row, or
who wants to maximize it, feel like they're living the longest possible amount of time.
Or awaiting, euthanasia or something like that. Right. So, what's up next?
Spaghetti Western Land.
God is my cult, right? God is my cult.
Oh, right. Which did make me think I would now like, so from now on, for the rest of this show, I want my credit to be with the extraordinary participation of Nick.
Yeah.
If fucking Donal O'Brien gets that, I figure as a fellow Irishman, it's the least they could do. I have to say, before we get ahead of this, holy shit, this movie kind of stars Donal O'Brien, right? An Irishman who has been fucking dubbed over the top with the world's worst Irish accent. That for me was like
it's
so
almost
surreal.
It's almost as bad as yours.
It's almost as bad as the one I do. Exactly. It's like they'd hired me to do an Irish accent for Donal. But no, it's so bizarre because I know what he sounds like, and I've seen him in lots of spaghetti westerns. But normally, if he's dubbed with like stock, Western guy voice.
Has he ever dubbed himself? Do you know?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Especially later on in horror films and stuff, like in
well, he's Butcher MD as well, right?
Yeah, in Ghost House, that's definitely his voice.
Right. Best left. Yeah, we leave that there, Ghost House, because I've had to watch that thing 4 times now in my life, which is that's not right. No one should have had to watch Ghost House
4 times.
Are you there? Are you there?
Yeah. Okay, so yeah. Anyway, so I just had to get out of the way with that. Was the one major stumbling block for me, was just every time he opened his mouth, I was like, Jesus, why is an Irishman being dubbed with a fake Irish accent? Anyway.
Yes. So this one, I think, is Arsitide Massaccesi, uncredited again, co-directing with take your pick: Ivan Katansky, Dean Jones, Paolo Savai, or real name Luigi Bazzella, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who was also the editor. The last of 4 westerns he made, but of course he's most well remembered for that video nasty classic, The Beast in Heat.
Oh yes, okay.
He's a sort of director who's like films he made are so like varied. I mean, this one feels like really workmanlike. So The Beast in Heat, but then you get to The Devil's Wedding now. That's fairly stylistic, and what's the other one? Nude for Satan. I remember that being quite a stylish film. Yeah, so
there's no brute eating pubic hair in this one.
No, it might have enlivened events if there had been, actually.
Yeah, I'm kind of I struggling to remember what happened. You could immediately tell that Arsitide Massaccesi didn't shoot this one, though, because there's one scene that actually goes out of focus.
Yeah.
So there's definitely not Joe D'Amato behind the camera. We've got to mention that Joe D'Amato did turn up in that last film as well, briefly. He is in it once again for a few seconds. So this one stars Jeff Cameron, right?
He sucks. Like, he's awful. Holy shit. And we have to see him in 2 different movies here.
Mike Jackson, right? And so he's
Michael Jackson. Yes, I kept hoping that maybe he would give me a moonwalk, but nope.
When he moonwalks into town, that's the clue. And he's hanging out with all them little kids.
Yeah, no. So this is the one where he's like he's a soldier, right? And he gets told he can go off. There's some cattle rustlers rustling cattle, and he gets told, oh, you can go off and take care of this. You can get a leave of absence. And he shows up in his civvies as a regular cowboy, and then the rest of the film is him trying to protect the town from the cattle rustlers, right? Oh, and then Donal is our one of our lead villains, right? He's a
henchman, isn't he? He's the main henchman to whoever the bad guy is. I'm forgetting. I
don't even know. It just says this hero is ugly as fuck. He looks like a lumpier David Carradine.
I actually don't remember this film at all. So Phil, if you will, hang on, here we go. Oh yeah, that's the one thing that was only notable of it. So the main villain is played by Gianfranco Clerici, right? Who's most well known as a screener. He worked on Cannibal Holocaust, House on
Okay.
the Edge of the Park, New York Ripper.
So some real sleaze then. Some
Yeah,
real...
yeah, yeah. But he's the guy who plays the main villain in this.
Wow.
And his Moll is played by Esmeralda Barros, who Gav is probably familiar with because she was in Dick Randall's King of Kong Island.
Yes, that's his sort of female Tarzan figure in that. That's what I want to know about. I think this one. I think what if this has anything going for it, it's like a better sort of better selection of co-star that sort of just makes up for the tank of wood that is Jeff Cameron.
Which
Yeah.
she's kind of the star of that film in some territories, right? Because with the original title Eve or whatever, she's like
a wow.
yeah. Rather than the King of Kong Island. I haven't seen King of Kong Island for a long time, but I knew you'd been all over it because it's a Dick
Well,
Randall.
I think it only became King of Kong Island when Dino De Laurentiis did the remake of King Kong, and then Dick Randall started calling it that. So,
Right,
yeah.
right. Yeah, no, fairly lackluster this Western. It's probably the most boring Western of the three here.
The daughter, although the daughter, there is a daughter, because I have a note here, who ends up getting forced into prostitution somehow, right? Is she the daughter of the guy with the silver? There's always a silver mine. I think there's a silver mine in two of these. But yeah, she shows up in a kind of like a little bustier leotard looking thing when she's in the the whorehouse, and she looks great. And that's another one where you're like, yes, that's some quality Joe D'Amato. Like,
we don't say whorehouse anymore, Nick. It's sex worker domicile.
Sex worker domicile. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. I was using the old fashioned parlance, Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Let's not belabor the point. It's just not.
I think we could just move on. Yes.
Yeah. Go on.
I was the other thing I was going to say, like whoever dubbed, especially our female villain, like her accent wanders all over the place. I have it written out as like Mexistani. Like there's just like it's just choose something and go with it. And I think I'm done.
Competing with Donald's dub.
Yes, wildly bad Irish accent.
So yes, we got one more Western to go. And it's another cut and paste one.
Face, whatever is fuck.
Yeah, this one is leans a lot more into the cut and paste. Although again, if I hadn't necessarily just seen the original version, I wouldn't have noticed. I don't. Did either of you watch the source Western for this one?
No, because my first note is always good to begin with nearly 7 minutes of a wagon train with your credits over the top, and then continue it for another 2 minutes after that. Fucking endless. Like, wow.
Yes. So the original here is Black Killer, which I'd seen before. Actually, it's quite a good one. I quite like Black Killer. One of the reasons being that it stars Klaus Kinski.
Okay.
Who's not in any of the footage they used for the one, but Black Killer's worth checking out. It's actually quite a good. And we were talking earlier about that weird verisimilitude that you get when you have a handheld camera in the Old West. Black Killer is one of those films I think about when I think about that. It's kind of got that going on. But Black Killer's worth a watch. But yeah, we're not talking Black Killer. We're talking Bounty Hunter in Trinity.
Yes, I assume he's not in the character of Trinity, because it's not a gay Western porn.
Sadly, no.
No.
I'm
Okay.
sure we get. Actually, no. I don't think D'Amato did any gay stuff in his porn. Right. I think it's pretty much straight all the way. I think.
Well, these are.
We're gonna find out
as we move on. Yes.
We will know. We'll find out. Yeah. So once again,
anyway, the important thing to know is to take away is Terence Hill is not being boned at any point in this film.
Sadly, no.
Okay.
And it's not Bud Spencer doing it.
The bear. Yeah, the bear. Awesome.
But that is my image of if I were to be raped in prison, it would be by someone
by Bud Spencer.
Yeah.
Or Paul Smith.
Yeah.
Hopefully Paul Smith.
Or you know, finger cuffs between the two of them.
So we can tell we really want to talk about Bounty Killer and Trinity
Fucking
here.
between Bud and Bluto.
All right. Anyway,
yeah. So Bounty, again, Arsitide Massaccesi hiding behind a pseudonym. This time, Oscar Faradin, who was Oscar Santianello, who seems to have been a production manager mostly. Again, Arsitide is in this. See, now this takes quite a lot of action footage from Black Killer, and again Jeff Cameron turns up. But I thought this was a lot more fun than because this is pretty much all action, right? Like it's just action.
Not the first 7 minutes.
After that, though, it's quite violent. There's a lot of action. There's a Jeff Cameron who's a lot more likable in this film, I think, just because he's just a straight down the line kind of mercenary.
Sure, but my concern about that is like he's such a one-dimensional, unstoppable. So this is that point in the spaghetti western where we've gotten away from any sense of like the hero can be harmed, right? That he's just like an expert, you know, like mercenary gunman. So like it's not like, you know, back when in Django where we got Franco Nero's hands getting smashed to pieces or Clint Eastwood getting the fuck beaten out of him, you know, and crawling around. This is just like this dude, like nobody lands a punch on him, nobody shoots him. He's just like
no, absolutely. But I enjoy, in its simplicity, I can imagine going to a theater in 42nd Street or something, this being on a triple bill, and it's just bang, 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 bang. It's done, and you're like, that was yeah, okay, yeah. It's something about this. I really appreciated how simple it was, and it just moved from A to B, and it nicked all this footage, and I didn't find it boring at all. It was just really about as no frills as you can. Obviously, you enjoyed it less than me, Nick. How about you, Gav? Did you get on with this one, or were you just bored?
It was okay. I mean, yeah, you said it's probably better action sequences in it. The stuff with the crossbow and the dynamite.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. But yeah, I was kind of forgetting about this film while I was watching it.
it's evaporating. Yeah, I will say the crossbow thing, because that was like I couldn't help but think of Rambo. You know, I was like, oh, this is very proto Rambo stuff here with the and you know, I didn't mind actually the villain of this piece was kind of the foppish young Mexican guy who's kind of the double agent in town, who's like obviously surprise, surprise, in league with the other group of Mexicans who are robbing stuff. He had kind of a young Benicio del Toro thing going on. I thought he was all right. I also was laughing like the name of this group, the Navajueros or whatever they were. They were like, are they supposed to put Navajos and Mexicans together? Like they just.
Well, what makes me laugh about in the original Black Killer as well, you have these 5 Mexican brothers. They even go to the trouble of giving one heavy brown face so he looks more Mexican. Antonio Cantafero, who turns up in this one, right? And they're all, you know, they've obviously gone out their way to make them look super Mexican. And they're the O'Hara brothers in Black Killer.
Well, you know, the Black Irish. It's a well-known thing. My dad is one of them.
We can also mention that this is also another opportunity to see the Scottish gravedigger in this.
Ooh,
is
yes.
the Asquithy fellow from More Filthy Canterbury Tales, right?
Yes, he is.
I think it might be his only other credit.
Yeah, and he's got quite a set of choppers on him. He almost, from some angles, looks like Tom Cruise. Like, you know, like it's just that massive fucking set of teeth he's got in his head.
That's not what I expected you to say.
Okay.
Yeah, Nick was clearly closing his eyes watch.
I tell you, go back,
Just listen to it.
specifically in that one, not so much in the one where he plays the young priest who's trying to get his end away, but in that one, yeah, no, I stand by it. From certain angles, he has a Tom Cruisiness, a bit more beat.
We know how to cast in the remake.
There we go.
Can Tom Cruise do a Scottish accent? Of course, Tom Cruise can do anything. As we he's super.
Well, I mean, his Irish accent in Far and Away is the stuff of legend.
Yes, this is cool. We're going to get kicked off. Does anyone have anything to say about this in a minute, or we shall return with the next?
Yeah, I will also say that, like, I'm always a bit dubious when a movie introduces its nominal hero 20 minutes into the running time. I'm like, that's quite a while to wait to see the guy who's apparently the main character. But
so why don't you, Gav Crimson, tell us what the Devil's Wedding Night from 1973 is all about? See, I gave him the hard job.
Well, it's sort of like a female Dracula film, would you say? Sort of Dracula's widow or something, would you say? Sort of.
It's a bit, I was thinking it's a little bit in the area of the Karnstein trilogy, like Vampire Lovers, Lust for a Vampire, Twins of Evil. It's that kind of slightly old-fashioned gothic thing you would have seen in the 60s, but a bit sleazed up. But
yeah, it's kind of like what's her name? Countess Bathory, right? It always seems like inspired by that version of vampirism. The women who bathe in, this is the one where she comes out of a cauldron of blood at one point, right?
She doesn't come out of a cauldron of blood, but she does have someone pour like a small glass jug of tomato juice on her tits.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a very clear image from one of these films of some woman emerging out of like a coppery looking.
Was there a cauldron of blood? I don't remember a cauldron of blood. Gav, cauldron of blood?
Yeah, yes. I think that.
There was.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I might have missed that. Yes, this was a rewatch. I'd forgotten I'd seen this film before, actually. I had more memory of it at all, which is odd because it's kind of a memorable setup. Yeah, so take it away. What's the plot then?
Well, two brothers and sort of one what they after some ring or something, or a ring of
Nebelung.
Yeah. So then so one of them goes to the castle and the dreadful plots off. So goes to the castle and then sort of meets these sort of Dracula's widow or something. And
yes.
That worshipping cult sort of thing going on.
Yeah, it's Mark Damon, right, who plays the twin brothers.
Yeah.
And one of them's researching this ring that seems to have come from the stone has come from a meteorite that's landed in the Carpathian Mountains. So he goes off to Castle Dracula, which his brother informs us is vampire country, just in case we'd forgotten. And and what I like about this, first he's quite he stops at this village, like typical kind of villagers don't want to talk about it, and he's a nice, caring dude. You can tell he's because he goes out of his way to take the virginity of the beautiful innkeeper's daughter, so she won't be in danger of being one of the 5 virgins sacrificed every 50 years. Yes, as you mentioned, there's a black mass. Rosalba Neri, or Sarah Bay, plays the countess, right, who might be the Countess of Dracula, and then Zero Papas is a vampire. There's a zombie maid, as played by Esmeralda Barros from one of the westerns we just watched. Yeah, it's a bit of a greatest hits of gothic, right, with some nudity and minor gore, and yeah, it's kind of fun, but it's all over the fucking place. It's and again we should mention co-directed once again by Luigi Bazzella, and again Massaccesi's still shy. He's still not quite ready to put his name on things, but he is the cinematographer as Michael Holloway in this instance. Yeah, no, it's kind of fun, hokum, I thought. How do you get on with this one?
Gav, go ahead.
Oh, well, yeah, I remember I used to, years ago in like the late 1990s, they used to put out a fanzine, like a horror film fanzine. I used to keep getting these like unsolicited reviews from this guy in Greece, and his two big obsessions were World War II weaponry and Rosalba Neri.
Oh,
so he sort of, I think because English wasn't his first language, there's that tendency to like talk about it in sort of really over the top sort of manner, like a Sphinx like beauty and
wow.
The girl with nipples you could hang your coat on. So that sort of tipped me off to her appeal, shall we say? And
Okay. And then would he just segue into talking about Messerschmitts or something? Like?
Yeah. Well, I think he sort of that review a lot of like Nazi exploitation films and that, with specific emphasis on whether they were the weaponry in them was accurate.
Wow. What was the fanzine called?
Pumping Crimson.
Pumping Crimson?
Yeah.
I don't remember that one.
No, thank God.
I do remember there was a guy, but there was a few of them. There was another Greek guy who, he didn't have a fanzine, but he had an absolutely massive, like, typed out catalogue of things that he had. He'd send you in the mail, and yeah, obviously a lot of spaghetti westerns, because a lot of those seem to exist specifically on Greek VHS back in the 80s, right? Yeah, no, I wonder if we can, if anyone's put issues of Pumping Crimson up on Internet Archive.
Hopefully not.
If you're the editor of Pumping Crimson, let us know, and we can do a Rosalba Neri special where you can enthuse more about her Sphinx-like beauty and nipple. I like the combination there of the one hand something quite literary and then just really crass.
He wasn't wrong though. He wasn't wrong though. You never need hangers than Rosalba Neri to
Yeah, I enjoyed this quite a lot. At the beginning, it took me a second to realize that they were both although it was, like that they were both being played by the same actor for some reason. I was just like, oh, that guy looks a lot like Nick Cave. And I was like, that other guy also looks a lot like Nick Cave.
I thought he looked like Martin Landau in this.
That too, yeah.
But not Tom Cruise.
No, I won't go out on that limb. Yeah, just lots and lots of cute girls topless in this. That was all very.
Oh, that's true. That helps. That
was very easy on the eyes.
The Sphinx-like beauty was. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
yes, I went.
Oh, Sphinx! Oh.
And then, and there was an amulet of Pazuzu. Always happy to hear Pazuzu get a name drop.
Yes, I just had this image of this fella like stood in the middle of the desert with his trousers around his ankles, knocking one out of the Sphinx.
Oh yeah, that's the those vast and trunkless legs of stone. That was all that was left of him. Ozymandias, wanker of wankers. Yeah, I also like the credits are great. The credits are very like Army of Darkness with this kind of swirling vaginal tunnel or Doctor Who thing going on. That was pretty awesome. Yeah, no, it was. I thought this was actually a lot of fun. There was also that kind of heavier set giggling Tor vampire guy.
Zero Papas. Yeah. He was in a couple of the westerns.
Yes, yeah. You don't expect to see a vampire quite so like such a man brick
He's like a Tor Johnson kind of vampire.
That's what I said. Yeah, exactly what I was thinking.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry. Yeah.
yeah. He is the Tor Johnson of vampires.
But
And also, there's a gong that appears at one point with the Tokugawa crest on it. And I assume, I don't know that had any, I doubt that anybody knew. They were just like, oh, we got a gong. I don't know what that is.
yeah, that was what the local antique shop had. I'm
Yeah.
guessing.
But yeah.
No. Also, I made a mistake when I first wrote about this back in the day as well, as many people did. So this was co-written, produced by it's guy called Ralph Zucker, whose name has come up a few times now on some of these films. And
He directed Airplane, I believe.
no, that's the other estranged Zucker brother. Yeah, he was involved in a lot of these Italian, especially preparing the English dubs, right? And for years, I think people used to confuse him with Massimo Pupillo, right? The guy who directed The Bloody Pit of Horror. And I fell into this trap because I think on the first film Massimo Pupillo directed, he was credited as maybe a similar thing to Arsitide Massaccesi hiding behind a. So lots of people thought they were the same, but they weren't. Ralph Zucker was a different guy. He didn't direct The Bloody Pit of Horror, and he died in 1982, I believe. And once again, we have Romano Scandariato, who must have been a good friend of Massaccesi, I guess. He's credited in most of these films, these early ones, right? He was assistant director on this under the name Robert Price Jones.
That's a nice pseudonym.
Obviously, he thought Robert Price, that's not Welsh enough. I'll stick a Jones on there as well. Yeah, no, this is this is all right. It's I'm guessing it's more Bazzella than it is Massaccesi. It's got.
I will say that one thing that's resolutely not scary is actual bats. So superimposing giant ones onto the screen where they just basically, it's a mouse with wings, right? It's not scary. It's ridiculous. So that was fun.
Yeah, no, it's all right. Kind of nice bit of gothic nonsense, but with added tits and a bit of gore. A hand gets cut off, and
Clive, there is a scene where a naked woman gets out of a cauldron of blood, so you might want to go back and.
Was there? You checked it? Did you?
No, there definitely is. Yeah, it's in my notes. I wrote it down, so I didn't hallucinate it.
It's not Tom Cruise.
It's not Tom Cruise.
Right. Okay. Because you see him everywhere.
I do hallucinate him quite often.
Okay.
What's up next?
Death Smiles on a Murderer.
Oh, fuck yes.
Which I thought I had seen before, and it turns out I hadn't ever seen this film.
Me too. That's
okay.
fascinating, Clive. Because I think what I, for some reason, thought it was...
Beyond Darkness.
No, that's funny. Oh. It's the Luciano Rossi thing. I thought it was... what's the... there's the Giallo where his eyes get melted out of his head. Although his eyes get fucked up. Maybe that's why. He has lime thrown in his face or something. Anyway, yeah, I mistook which Luciano Rossi movie I was watching.
Right. Yes, so who wants to have a go at this plot synopsis then?
No.
Yeah, we'll assign Nick to this.
Oh,
one.
good.
Yes, as punishment.
Okay.
It's Tom Cruise obsession.
So have you guys have seen this, right? The Luciano Rossi book that was it Fab put out some years back.
I have read that very copy you're holding.
Oh, you read this exact one? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And
it's your mate Kayla Jensen, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So she this is basically the Teen Beat publication for Luciano Rossi. She had a massive whatever a woman has in terms of a hard-on for him for whatever reason. And I like this because this is the film that she's like, this is him at his sexiest, according to this review. Like this is quintessentially the most attractive he's ever been on screen. And
in Death Smiles on a Murderer.
Yes.
Really? Stringy hunchback.
That's the one. Where does it say this? This is one of the most satisfying roles of Rossi's career. His hair is great, and he dies a spectacular, gory death, courtesy of a hand puppet.
Really? His hair is good. He looks like someone who would have been fired from Slade for having hair too stringy.
Well, here we go. Rossi fans rejoice. Not only do we get to see him in a major pivotal role, but also the camera loves him in this film. Massachese's lauded horror debut is a period piece. Yeah. Anyway, she goes on. It comes up a few times across the review how much the camera loves him and his. Yeah. Anyway.
I
not what I took away.
I've heard her other book is better, right? Because I remember,
I do like this book a lot.
It is a bit of an. I'm glad it exists because it's such a weird thing to get published. It's kind of like if I published a book that was all about our all-in, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Anyway, I think it's a Luciano or Crowley movie that I had seen that I thought was this.
Oh, that's Death
one
at Midnight, is it?
Yes, that's the one. Yeah. That's what I. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know how the fuck to explain this. Basically, Luciano Rossi plays an incestually obsessed brother of Ewa Olin, who.
Well, to be fair, that happens if your sister's Ewa Olin.
This is, yes, fair comment. Clive and I have talked about her before when we talked about a shared favorite film of ours, Death Laid an Egg.
Have you ever seen Death Laid an Egg, Gav?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a very strange giallo by the guy who directed The Craziest Django Kill, right? Giulio Questi. But anyway, so yeah, she's smoking hot in that. She's also smoking hot in she's in Candy, right? She is Candy.
She is Candy, yeah.
She's Candy, yes. And she's definitely channeling that. She's like a human Barbie doll. Right? It's just quite bizarre to see her little perfect face.
It's odd. I think I mean, she's beautiful, obviously, but this film is less of a, because she has the slight period haircut and clothes, and so she's not running around in mini dresses like she is in Candy, so it's not immediately kind of tent pitching entertainment. But she is a beautiful. She's also in another really good film she's in is Ceremonia Sangrietta, that speaking of Elizabeth Bathory, that other Elizabeth Bathory film that she was in maybe just before this. That's a really good film. I would recommend that one. So
basically he's obsessed with his sister. And we learn a lot of this through flashbacks. It seems as though she has then took up with what's his name, Giacomo Rossi Stewart or whatever. He plays some sort of older gentleman. She's taken up with him. Maybe he's gotten her knocked up and then she's died in childbirth or something.
Well, hang on, you've got this ass backwards though, because that's the first is we're introduced. There's the whole coach accident thing.
Well, yeah. But I'm just saying, like, I'm putting the story in order of what I think actually happens. But yes, a lot of it's revealed. A lot of that is all revealed in flashbacks as the film goes on.
Also, right? Spoilers, by the way.
Oh yeah, massive spoilers, everybody.
Yeah.
Be on your guard. Yeah. So basically, I mean, some of it's just also downright confusing. Like, it's not entirely clear what's happened. Like,
I don't think you have to consider yourself an idiot if you don't follow the. You do. I've watched it twice now, and I kind of get it, but there's still bits that don't really match up, and I'm even wondering if they're supposed to, because this is the kind of film I think doesn't necessarily like, you can watch it a couple of times and you understand it a bit more, but I'm not sure if my enjoyment value went up by understanding it more, because it is a very dreamlike
the dream logic is more fun than but basically, so maybe she dies in childbirth or something, and then her body gets brought back to Luciano Rossi. He fucking freaks out and then somehow brings her back to life, maybe. And then
if Luciano Rossi always freaks out, though. That's what he does. Like,
that's
if you
pretty
forget
much
to put milk on his Weetabix, he's like
and then so he anyway, he's kind of and then we have this whole thing where she gets in this coach accident. This guy gets impaled through his chest, but his guts are out for some reason. That was a great. This film is surprisingly gory for 72. I thought.
It's very hokey, like like someone gets a shotgun to the face, and
Yes.
rather than get a hole in their face, they look as if they're turning into Matango fungus of terror or something. Like,
Right.
it's very odd go. And of course, we should admit it's got the world's longest cat attack. That
Yes.
thing goes on for like over 30 seconds.
Oh yes. Yes.
Ridiculous. Yeah. And then cuts away and then back. Back. Still going. I'm thinking, how hard is that? It's a cat. Throw
Yes.
it away. How hard is it to get rid of that cat, man?
Yeah, and it really fucks up his face. Like that,
Jesus
the
Christ.
gelid eye hanging out of his head.
That's the world's dangerous cat. That's more dangerous than that cat in that film, The Uninvited, that escapes from the lab and has some creature living inside it. Yeah.
So anyway, so she's knocked out of the carriage. She's taken in by this family, this husband and wife who kind of nurse her back to health. They bring in Dr. Klaus Kinski to see if he can help out. His forehead is like, I didn't notice this. I don't know how I did, but like anytime he leans over, it's like this incredible tree of veins just appears, like bulging out. He looks like a fucking alien from the first season of Star Trek or something like that. Like anyway.
Yeah. Note to all wives out there, by the way, if a coach with Ewa Olin crashes outside your house, don't invite her in, because your husband will fall for her.
Yes.
And
so will you, as it turns out.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
he falls even harder for Ewa. So Kinski, I think, realizes maybe that she is the key to like reincarnate, because he's a bit of a reanimator figure, it seems. He's even.
The one bit of the puzzle that I still can't quite put in is Klaus Kinski's character appears at what part of the, because he disappears as well, right?
Oh yeah.
And I'm not quite sure when he's examining Ewa Olin. Is that in 1909 or is it in 1906? Or because I can't remember if he's interacting with the other characters from that.
I thought he was, but I could be imagining that.
Because he kind of disappears, doesn't he? I thought he'd be in it more, but other than sticking.
Is he not murdered?
In Ewa Olin's eye.
Oh yeah, fuck! I wrote that. Yeah, like that was surprisingly full on as well.
It's well done as well. Unlike the other gore scenes, which are very kind of, Jack in the Box.
Mm-hmm.
It's that looks very realistic. It's very dead and buried.
And long before Lucio Fulci put that big splinter in whatever her name, Tisa Farrow's face. But
although I have to admit, considering it is Horn Dog Klaus Kinski, not the appendage I was expecting him to stick in which orifice when confronted with Ewa Olin either.
That's given, yes, his proclivities. And then so the wife of the house actually falls for Ewa, and then we get into very it's funny. When they first found the scar on her neck or whatever, and the guy was like, "Oh, she's like connected to this secret of like reanimation." It reminded me a little bit of
Inca reanimate. Inca.
Yes.
That to be
yes.
Right. Yeah.
But also, what's that Mackin story about they do the brain experiment on that girl? It's one of his most Great God Pan, I think.
Right.
I don't know why, but there was like a little something at the back of my head about that. And then obviously it gets very Edgar Allan Poe.
It's Edgar Allan Poe, it's Black Cat and Telltale Heart all the way.
And Cask of Amontillado, because the wife bricks Ewa up.
And some Camilla as well, Sheridan Le Fanu, right, is in there as well. It's a bit of a grab bag
of gothic hits.
It's very much in that it's in that vein of a lot of these Italian horror films where there's a lot of style over substance, right? Regardless of who's directing, there's that idea of the overall atmosphere is so much more important than if the story makes any sense or not. Like City of the Living Dead or something like that, which again is like ideas stolen from other places. and then prepared in this kind of sumptuous, elegant way,
Yes.
but that makes
It's put in a soup of dream logic.
yeah,
and
that makes no sense because of course food doesn't have to make sense. It has to be delicious, you know what I mean? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an odd one. I've seen it twice now, and I watched it with a Tim Lucas commentary on it as well, which is very interesting. But I feel as if I could watch it again, even though I don't think it's not like brilliant. It's not like, oh, I love this film, but there's something about it. I don't know, how did you fellas get on with maybe you just found it infuriating and annoying. I don't know. How did you get on with Gav? You've been quiet there for a while. What did you make of Death's Match? Was this your first time watching it, or had you seen it before?
No, I've never seen it back in the 1990s on like a VHS bootleg from Greece, I think. Like
The Sphinx-like beauty of Eva Olive.
yeah, but yeah, it doesn't go out of its way to make sense, does it?
No, this is true.
But apparently in America it was released directly to television, and like so presumably would have had all the gore and nudity cut out. So God knows it made no sense with all those scenes cut from it. Yeah.
I think it would survive though. Like, it's a film that doesn't necessarily rest on its gore nudity. So like I feel as if the overall impact would probably be kind of the same, maybe.
Yeah, but I think it's Avco Embassy or something put it directly to
Right.
television. Yeah, the number of films they put out that picked up and put that to them and TV.
But did you? It's interesting. I don't think it's come up before, because depending on, because I know Nick's all right with it. Like my other partner I do podcasts with, Ron. One of his Achilles heels is not knowing what's going on. Like, he doesn't like when things are not confused.
You've got to stick with it and sort of fight to make sense of it, haven't you?
Yeah. But is that something you're willing to do with it, meet it halfway, or was it just for fuck's sake?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, there's something a bit beguiling. What did you make of it, Nick? Did you?
Oh, this was manna to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big, as you know, I'm a big fan of Fulci and horror films that don't make sense. They don't need to, as long as they have affect, right? As long as they do what they need to do. And this movie has like 10 minutes of Ewa Allen eating in close-up. I could have watched 90 minutes of her sticking finger foods in her mouth. So yeah.
That's a euphemism I've not heard before.
There you go. No, this was great. And the other thing is, I really felt like this is the first film he puts his name on, right?
But for years, this was officially the Arsitide Massaccesi debut feature.
That's what I mean. So like, yeah, it's the first film he puts his name on officially, and I do feel like it has the look of a film made by a cinematographer who is finally completely free. Like, he's sitting in the director's chair and he's going to get to do, because one thing this film has in spades is an immense amount of style. All these, it actually looks like an EC Comics, like by Graham Ingalls, right? It was my favorite of that set of illustrators. It looks like that come to life. Like some of the Dutch angles and like weird low stuff under like Luciano Rossi. He does look amazing. He doesn't look handsome. He looks like a hideous gargoyle, but like all that stuff, to me was just.
No, it does look great. Actually, as well, there's some very clever stuff in it, which isn't show-offy, which I didn't even notice the first time around. There's like one scene towards the end, actually just prior or just after the cat scene, where there's no cut and the camera drifts from one part of the room over to another part. Someone enters and it's just a matter of a few seconds and it comes back. And then what was before like I can't remember if it was just like a bed or something like that. And suddenly it's got all these cobwebs and dust and it looks like it's really well done. Like, I don't know how they dressed that bed
that quickly
and so authentically, but it's really well done. It's all done, but it's not show-offy. And I didn't even register it until I watched it the second time, and I thought, holy fuck, how did they do that? Like they must have just wheeled another bed out, and there's no way they would have dressed it and wheeled another one in. I thought stuff like that was quite cool.
Yeah, I mean, it seems the film's just gorgeous. I mean, I really this is the one that just reminded me of what an incredible cinematographer he is. What a great sense of where to place the camera. Now these, because you know, when you're filming, you don't always have that choice, because the director may tell you, I want this angle of this. But like, it really felt to me like woven of whole cloth. This is a guy who has this image, and it's there with a minimum of like stuff getting in the way. It felt to me like this is just pure Massaccesi.
Yeah.
Well, I say Massaccesi. I mean,
yes. A couple of things I learned from or things that popped up in the Tim Lucas commentary was quite interesting. Was he points out, so the music, the Berto Pisano score, and you don't hear that much of it in the film, and it's quite low in the mix. But apparently, if you can get the soundtrack, which was put out a few years ago as part of a set, I think, of 3 Klaus Kinski films, the 2 he made after this, what's it called, the Hands That Feed the Dead, or there was like a couple of films he made back to back. Also worth noting, he came right off the back of doing Aguirre Wrath of God, which
nice.
that must have been it's like he's got like 12 credits or something for this year, right? But so the soundtrack apparently is really worth, if you can get it in its entirety. Apparently the soundtrack is really quite something. Also, I couldn't help noting that game they play where people dance around you and then they stop and you have to guess who they are. Shit game. Shit game. I never want to play that game. That shittest game ever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess there was nothing to do 100 years ago.
Clearly.
Yeah.
This is if I had to, I guess if I had to pick a standout for me of this first bunch of 8, this is the one for me. In fact, the 2 horror films, funnily enough, I would say the bare-breasted countess thing we just talked about. Those, these 2 would be my choice.
Clearly, it's becoming apparent early on that D'Amato, obviously, he's maybe we're getting into his wheelhouse, right? And the more eroticism creeps in, then we're getting near to the D'Amato aesthetic, right?
We have 2 more to do. Okay.
Right. So now it gets a bit anticlimactic because we're watching films in a language we don't understand, right? We couldn't get subtitles or dubs for the so first up is Novelle Licenziose de Vergini Vogliese, I guess, or
1001 Nights
of Boccaccio in Canterbury. So
yes.
Here we go. We went for the whole mashup this time. So this is and him and the name Michael Watruba. So I would like to see this film with subtitles.
Me too.
Because this looks like it might be all right.
Yes, I think so. This one feels like even more really inspired by Pasolini. You know what I mean? Not like it has more of the trappings of a Pasolini film than maybe the other ones do.
Well, it also chucks Dante into the mix as well, right? It's like it's enough for Boccaccio, Canterbury. Actually, I suppose there's any Arabian Nights in it because they hadn't made that yet. But Dante definitely. And Chaucer and Boccaccio and Dante are even in it, right, as characters, from what I understand.
Yes, that seemed to me to be the case too. Yeah, and it opens in hell. I always love a movie that opens in hell.
Yeah, well, the hell is quite. I would imagine shooting this film might have been hell because it looks as if there's a lot of really smoky, real fires having been lit in, I don't know where they filmed this. They seem to be in like some cave or some catacombs, or it doesn't look like a set. It looks like they're actually in some subterranean space and everything's on fire. So I'm guessing it wasn't the nicest environment to film in. Like, I'm guessing there was a lot of people like coughing their guts out in between scenes, but
Yes.
that does lend it a certain atmosphere, I think, for the scenes when they're actually in, when we cut back, because again, it's got that format where someone,
The anthology.
yeah, and then we go and we see something vaguely bawdy, and then we come back and we see a, yeah,
We see that. Well, we see them being punished in hell. Like we kind of see, it often is a character from the story, and we see what their punishment is, and then we find out the story. Why did they get punished in that way, right?
yeah. But the thing is, all the stories are very similar to what we saw.
Yes,
You know, it's like
it's just these cook holding,
horny friar, someone giving someone meat flute lessons, you know,
yes,
all that kind of
people hiding under beds, and
that stuff was less impressive. But it's the stuff in hell, I think, that makes me want to see it properly, because that stuff genuinely looks like quite well done and atmospheric, and then yeah, it cuts to confessions of a fucking nun or whatever,
yeah.
And then back again. I have to say, I do like the Elektra Films logo that flashes up at the beginning of this. It's very simple. It's just a kind of, but I like it. I like it a lot.
But I wonder why that sort of more filthy tales one. I wonder why that one was chosen to be dubbed into English rather than these other ones. I mean, they all seem to be, you know, fairly similar sort of quality, really.
Yeah, if anything, this one might be even a bit better, I think. So yeah, I don't know why.
Well, this had censorship problems as well, right? This is the one that got sent to the censor board like 4 times or something, apparently. Quite a bit cut out of it. And then so Luca Damiano, once again, I think he prepared the final edit, because apparently Joe D'Amato had gone off and he was shooting that film, The Counselor, the Alberto De Martin Balsam film.
Oh, okay.
He was off in New York directing that. So apparently it was Luca Damiano who prepared like the final, because it kept getting bouncing back off the censors. Too much, I think, just too much graphic sex, from what I understand. But no, to your point, Nick, Edgar, yeah, I don't know why. And again, why most, because obviously some of them did, because as you mentioned, Nick, you know, they had enough visibility to influence Monty Python. But yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know if anyone can answer it, really. Another catchy theme tune, by the way.
Oh, yes.
Not quite up there with Padre, but
Padre.
Obviously we need a compilation now. That's what I call D'Amato or something like that. Double cassette release.
unless there's a Decamerotica.
Yeah, did Crippled Dick Hotwax put out Cameron?
I'll take a look. It
is surprising.
It does seem a bit of like a forgotten genre outside of Italy, though, doesn't it? Really, though.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Why it didn't take off, I don't know. And because, like you said, Gav, they're not a million miles away from the nonsense that we were making, except that they're period pieces, right? Like, I'm trying to think. We didn't make that many period pieces. Sex comedy.
No, like go for more sort of like modern day sort of contemporary things, and I think the ones that we did do that period pieces didn't do too well. Keep it up downstairs, just Hamlet and stuff like that. They didn't seem to perform as well as the Confessions or Adventures of sort of that. But
I suppose the only thing that fits the category is something like Virgin Witch, maybe, or something like that.
Maybe, yeah.
Except that's not funny.
Well,
well, yeah.
What about the Carry On films? I mean, I know that they're not actual sex films, but they are bawdy, and they tended to have a lot more
Period.
historical period.
Yeah. Carry
Right.
On Henry, stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Carry On things feel almost a genre unto themselves.
Mm.
Yeah.
And that's funny. Then there's going to be there's almost a mini boom later on. Then again, but off the back of the single, the Tinto Brass, Bob Guccione, Caligula.
Yeah, but that's even more specific. Those are Caligula films, right?
Or yes, there's like a subgenre of, or like a very small cycle of like rip-offs of that.
But again, probably more than you'd expect. There's
Yes.
like a half dozen of them. But someone said, because it's funny, I've never counted, because the Decamerotica thing. So I remember reading someone saying there might be as many as like 50 of them.
That's wild.
And I could think of maybe, I don't know, a dozen maybe, but that many.
Well, I mean, just consider the number of fucking shitty James Bond things.
Yeah, but that's a different thing. James Bond is a proper phenomenon, a world, and it's still going, right? I understand a million James Bond rip-offs.
Well, Pasolini got murdered, Clive. That you can't hold it against him that he wasn't able to continue to make his.
Well, I'm saying he didn't even need to, because all these other people. Well, the other thing as well, it wasn't as if. Oh no, I suppose yes, it did actually. I was just about to say, and then I realized, no, I'm talking complete bullshit. Salo did influence an entire whole bunch of fucking concentration camp and Nazi.
Oh yes.
Sex movies. Yeah. So yeah, yeah. You wonder if Pasolini, what if he was spinning in his grave, right? Because.
Or was that the whole idea? He was Trojan horsing this shit into like the public domain or public sphere, so that everyone else could be like, oh yes, now we can do our, Beast in Heat or whatever the hell it was they wanted to do.
Well, anyway, let's not prolong the pain.
Okay. Okay.
FRA'TAZIO da VELLETRI.
But hang on, there's a couple of things. There's a dude sitting in a barrel of turds in this film.
No, that was a Cauldron of Blood.
No. This is definitely a Gav. Am I incorrect? Is there not?
I think so. They're all sort of blurring together in that.
Yeah, at first when they showed him in kind of in hell or whatever, he's just sitting in what looks like a barrel.
This is Nemo Polly, right? He plays the big fat friar who convinces a young hottie to massage her suit flesh.
Yes.
Yes.
And he's somehow his punishment is to be neck deep in a barrel of turds for all eternity. Which
is straight out of Dante, right?
Oh yeah. And then there's a whole goofy scene where the two married couples decide to cheat on their spouses, or like the two dudes make an agreement to cheat, but then the two wives also, so they end up just fucking their own wives and thinking that they're cheating.
Yeah, but had to go to hell anyway.
But yeah, for having had the thought.
Because it's the thought that counts. Yeah. Very consenting adults. That scene, I thought, like when they cross each other in the hallway. I was imagining Kevin Spacey and whoever the other guy in that film is. Speaking of people go to hell, that's probably another guy.
There you go.
On his way there.
And then there is the scene with like the young fella who's like, the mistress of the house takes it upon him to teach him the ways of sex. He just looks a lot like a young Paul McGann or Tom Cruise, now that I think about it. But no, mostly Paul McGann.
Right.
I don't have anything else to add.
Yeah. So FRA'TAZIO da VELLETRI, which is the last one, and this is the one I think I had the most difficulty, oddly enough, actually following Sans subtitles. This was the one that on the one hand suffered the most from lack of subtitles, but also at the same time felt as if wouldn't benefit entertainment-wise. I don't know where you both stand. This one didn't look very interesting to me.
No. My first note just says a couple of dodgy friar fucks wander around medieval times seducing ladies pretending to be exorcists. Yeah, I mean, and are they supposed to be the same? Is one guy impersonating the other guy? Is that
I couldn't figure
one
out.
is actually a priest? But they both seem to be kind of like sexually interested in women, regardless of whether one is a legit priest or not. But I did say
read a whole bunch of plot synopses, and I still couldn't quite follow what was happening. I mean,
right.
but Krista Linda's in it, so as a
Mhm.
Mona Lisa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, Tor Johnson seems to be in it. And Dario Argento, maybe. They seem to play a couple of like goons that are on the trail, right, of one of the two priest fellas.
Yeah, I was pretty bored. I was just I zoned out a bit, and I just started singing "Padre, Padre" to myself to make the time pass. Yeah, I have shockingly
Yeah, no.
little to say
This
about
one's pretty. This one's yes. Oh, it ends with a hilarious gay panic scare where the two guys crawl into bed to get together, and yeah, no. This was definitely a low point, if not the low point, in this first 8 for me.
Yeah, not for me too.
Perhaps Gav will be a descending
Yeah,
opinion.
no, it's pretty forgettable.
So then, yes, we agree.
Yeah,
This sucks.
that would have been your cue to step in and say, "It's a masterpiece. This is."
No.
No, it's. I mean, it's not. Again, I feel as if I'm not qualified because I wasn't in it, but it just seems just very bleh, like neither terrible or great.
Just more of the same, yeah.
Yeah, in some ways, although it's a little different. It is in that Decamerotica vein, I suppose, but it's not an anthology, so that makes it a little different. And if I don't know, it felt a little different. It felt more like, because it happened to be a period piece, it would be lumped in with that bunch of stuff. But it felt a bit different somehow. Like it was a
sitcom-y to me in some weird way. Like, you know what I mean? It wasn't the other two the other ones had a bit more of an edge to them, and this one to me felt a bit more just light. And I don't know if that's just, I don't know. To me, it just, I don't know, this whole the mistaken identity thing, the two guys and whatever, it just seemed like it was.
Yeah. Well, anyway, whatever. Our the debut episode of D'Amato goes out on a bit of a
a bum note.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
I mean, yes. And well, the thing is, as we continue, hopefully so how many? Yeah, there was 2 films we couldn't properly understand in this bunch. I think there'll be fewer of those as we go along. There might be 1 or 2 here or there we can't source with any sort of subtitles, but I think more or less the early era of really obscure things that weren't released anywhere in English is more or less behind us, right? I think looking ahead, we at least will understand what we're watching. Apart from a lot of the porn, but it's porn. I mean, how complicated can it be? This goes in that back and forth a lot, and it also goes in this other one, and sometimes it goes in there, and sometimes there's combinations, but basically it's that, and then that's how porn works, right? I haven't seen any of it.
I that's what it's been described to me. There's a service that I phone and they describe what's happening in porn films, and I try to imagine. But anyway, the fuck, yeah. But for me, it was actually probably more either near hits or hits than misses in this 8. But as you know, Clive, I have very low standards. So I don't know.
In general,
yeah.
But no, I agree. This was slightly less painful than I expected it to be. Gav, how are you feeling at the end of our first episode? Is it throwing in the towel, or are you?
No, but I think the horror stuff, sort of the standout stuff, though, the horror rather. So it just as well it made more horror films than spaghetti westerns and the camera
But they will definitely increase in volume, that and just straight sex films. But yeah, so we know that at least we have that to look forward to.
Yeah, well, I think in particular it's filth. It's filth, isn't it? But yeah, with some darkness in there. That does seem to have been his speciality. He just seems to have naturally, I mean, because the other thing as well that was kind of interesting about, so because I wasn't, there's a few titles a little bit later on that'll pop up again which are not 100% are they Massaccesi joints or not, but then there's other ones that we won't be getting to which I think were once considered Massaccesi films but have now been pretty much they're not. So for instance, we won't be watching that film Bestialita, or as it's known in its bootleg title, and I do like this, Dog Lay Afternoon.
Christ.
If you've ever seen that one, from 1975, which for years I think people assumed was a Joe D'Amato film, but I'm pretty sure isn't. I don't think he even shot it. So, but for some reason, people thought it was him who made it for years.
Is that because of whatever it was, the Emmanuel film?
I can't remember what for some
reason,
though, it was considered a Joe D'Amato film for the longest time. But you know, any excuse to mention Dog Lay Afternoon, yes, got it in there. The only my other favorite one along those lines, sorry, while I'm on the tangent, is there's a Hisayasu Sato film. I can't remember what the original title was, but it's sometimes known as Lady of the Stable, and it's one of these, you know, horse, and someone came up with a fantastic bootleg English title. Nay means yes.
Oh God. Wow. Jesus.
Yes. Anyway, on that classy note,
that seems to make sense. I mean, it's a Joe D'Amato show. I don't know what you're coming here for.
We don't want to get too highfalutin.
I think we're all going to hell now.
See you there, guys.
Yeah.
Let's race. See who gets there first.
Nei suoi occhi c'è la vita, c'è l'amore. Nel suo corpo c'è la febbre del dolore. Sta seguendo una luce che cammina. Lentamente tanta gente s'avvicina. Chiesa
move, man. I was on my way up here to the studio, you know what I'm saying? Then this brother stopped me and asked me, yo, what's up with that brother Chucky D? He swear he nice. I said, yo, the brother don't swear he nice, he knows he's nice, you know what I'm saying? So Chuck, I got a feeling you turning into a public enemy, man. Now remember that line you was kicking to me on the way out to LA Lounge in Queens while we was in the car on our way to the shop? Well, yo, right now, kick the bass for them brothers and let them know what goes on.
Rolling stones of the rap game, not bragging. Lips bigger than Jagger, not sagging. Brother backwards, I'ma leave it at that. That ain't got nothing to do with rap. Giant bats expose those cats who pose as heroes, take advantage of blacks. The government's gangsters, so cut the crap. A war going on, so where y'all at? Fight the power, cause great responsibility. F the police, who's stopping you from killing me? Disasters, fiascos, a loop by PE. If it's eyes, then we believe on TV. Spreading riches, bitches, is new thing about snitches. Watch the masses move as the masses switches. System distant, but barely missed her. My soul intention to save my brothers and sisters. Get up!
Just like that.
Get up!
Just like that.
Get up!
Just like that.
Get up!
Just like that. Yeah, that's right, Chuck, man. That's what you gotta do. You got to tell them just like that. You know what I'm saying? Cause yo, man, let me tell you a little something, man. These brothers running around, hard-headed, they get a little jealous, you know what I'm saying? Just like that. You know, they try to bring you down with them. But yo, Chuck, you got to tell them just like that.
Screaming gangster 20 years later. Of course, endorsed while consciousness faded. New generations believe in them fables. Gangster boogie on 2 turntables. So no love, so it's easy to hate it. Desecrated while the coroner waited. Any given Sunday, so where y'all rated? With slavery, lynching, and them drugs infiltrated. I like that doll Chucky, baby. Keep coming back to live love life like I'm crazy. Keep it moving, rising to the top. Duck trust, clean living, you don't stop. Revolution means change, don't look at me strange. So I can't repeat what other rappers be saying. If you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. Harder than you think is a beautiful thing. Get up!
Just like that.
Get up!
Just like that.
Get up!
Just like that.
Get up!
Just like that. Yeah, that's right, Chuck, man. That's what you gotta do. You got to tell them just like that. You know what I'm saying? Cause yo, man, let me tell you a little something, man. These brothers running around, hard-headed, they get a little jealous, you know what I'm saying? Just like that. You know, they try to bring you down with them. But yo, Chuck, you got to tell them just like that.
So it's time to leave you a preview, so you too can review what we do. 20 years in this business, how you sell soul, she wins. People bear witness. Thank you for letting us be ourselves. So don't mind me if I repeat myself. These simple rhymes be good for your health, to keep them crime rhymes on the shelf. Live love life like you just don't care. 5,000 leaders never scared. Rain and noise is the moment they feared. Get up, still a beautiful idea. Get up, throw your hands in the air. Get up and show no fear. Get up if y'all really care. You need 20 years, now get up.
Yeah, that's right. We're public enemy number 1 in New York. Public enemy number 1 in Philly. Public enemy number 1 in DC. Public enemy number 1 in Cleveland, Ohio. Also, we're public enemy number 1 in St. Louis. Public enemy number 1 in New Jersey. And Bussy. We're also public enemy number 1 in Cincinnati. In Atlanta. We're public enemy number 1 in Chicago. Public enemy number 1 in Detroit. Public enemy number 1 in Oakland. Public enemy number 1 in Baltimore. Public enemy number 1 in Miami.
Well, there he is, folks. Jonathan Duke III. They call him Duke for short. A name you'd search for in vain in the history of the gunslingers of the West. In fact, the only reason he carries a gun is because it goes good with a suit. However, he does have other weapons at his disposal. Namely, a certain class in his way of acting, dressing, speaking, and a capacity for getting people to trust him. By the way, have you ever tried his elixir for long life? You haven't, huh? Well, I can readily understand that.